Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Mike and Sean from Glasshouse Games. Together with their friend Logan, they're debuting their animal battling card game called Whisker Wars on Kickstarter. Gentlemen, welcome to the binge. How you doing?
Good, man. We're glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's amazing to have you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I wish we could have had Logan here. It would have been cool to have all three of you, but I'm sure you guys can cover off his stuff. I know we all got day jobs, and this is a hobby for many people in this industry. So just getting 2 to 3 is mission accomplished. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course. And we'll try not to speak too badly about him. It comes naturally to us. But we'll do our best to say
if he
nice
can't
things.
defend himself, then hey, why not, eh? So how did you guys all get together? So you guys are all friends, I guess, eh?
Yeah, so funny enough, Logan and I, buddies back in college. Sean and I met on a job when we work in TV and film. And then while on that job, we just became quick friends, had a connection through his brother, funny enough. Weird happenstances all around. And then a couple years later, we did the thing.
And but like, are you guys in the like TV industry or the film industry, or what's the?
Yeah, Mike still is, and I was. I switched jobs since that job that we met on, but yeah, we were both working. For the show Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Okay, wow.
That shot all over New York City. So
Yeah.
we were on that show, and I introduced myself, and Mike was like, "I know someone named like Leaf. Like, do you know same last name?" And I was like, "No." I'm like, "Yeah, that's my brother." And then I was like, "Gosh, I hope you like my brother." And then we kind of just like hit it off from there. That was an easy we could get along. And then one day, like on set, it gets really slow some days.
Yeah.
And it was raining and slow, and we were sitting in a trailer waiting and waiting and waiting for stuff to happen. And we were so bored. We were just like, "Do you want to?" I just started waxing about board games and stuff, and Mike started kind of riffing with me, and then all of a sudden we started fleshing out this ultra heavy.
So were
Ultra
you
heavy
guys
board
like
game.
board gaming before that? Like, was it like were you bringing games to the set at all to kind of kill some time, or?
No, I don't think we ever really brought any sort of analog games. I mean, I grew up with tabletop games. My older brothers got me into
Yeah.
it. Big like video game into tabletop, like in high school, middle school. But on Maisel together, we kind of just riffed. We
Yeah.
just like couldn't stop talking.
I think that was more just us discovering the nerd in each other.
Totally.
Because like on set, you're trying to be professional,
Yep,
and yes, there's
100%.
jokes and stuff, but we were like, "Oh wait, we're dorks."
Yeah, it was that
Like,
classic, like you were proposing something, and then I was on the other side being like, "But what if it had this thing?" And it's like, "What if it had this thing?" And you
I
were
was like,
like,
"That's a
"Hey,
great idea."
you want to talk about this later?" Like,
Anybody yelling at you, staying quiet on the set, guys? Like,
Uh,
thankfully, we never got close enough that we needed to worry about that. Otherwise, I would have been extremely professional.
it did start to cut into like our workday though. Like
Yeah.
we would be
100%.
sitting there like we should have been doing work, and we were instead like building out like spreadsheets for the game and naming monsters we wanted to fight against and cool mechanics. And anyway, it ended up being quite an awesome pastime.
it's tough. Like when when the creative bug grabs you,
Yeah.
right? It's tough to really think about anything else. It's like you got to kind of like exercise it from you, right? You got to kind of get it out and get it down on either in the computer or on paper or something, just to kind of flush it out, right?
Oh, yeah.
100%. I mean, so on that job, Sean was doing a lot of like spreadsheet work, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I
Yeah.
feel like you were such a whiz at spreadsheets at that, and up until that point hated spreadsheets, and he was like, "Let me just put these into a formula real quick." And then 30 seconds later, we're like, "Do we have a balanced monster sheet right now of playtestable characters?" And then from there, it was all just magic. So,
Oh
to,
wow.
but to your point, James, like that continues to happen. Like
oh
even
yeah.
now, we'll be like in the middle of what's going on now, when we should be concentrating on one game, someone will have an idea, and we just have to talk about it because
Yeah.
it'll be bothering us if we don't at least humor it for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell this story. I've said a few times on the podcast where I've got 2 games that were offshoot ideas that came up while we were working on another game, and we just had to get it down and just so we could kind of like get it off to the side and get it out of the way so we could get back to the game we were working on. And it's amazing how it's almost like a fractal, right? Things just like they just splits up and just start going these different directions. And sometimes you come up with like maybe a game mechanic, or you come up with like a story idea, and you're like, well, it's not necessarily right for this game, but let's park it, or let's put it over here because this could maybe be an expansion, or maybe this is like the sequel, or maybe this is another game all together we can work on. And you don't want to lose it, so you make sure you, hopefully you document it when you have those other ideas, right?
Oh yeah.
Before you get back to the regular one.
I'm a big proponent for, if you're thinking anything creatively, write it down. Even if it's like robots fights cats, meeple manager, ba ba ba, with a little intro. Like, you
Yeah.
never know what you might come to back to in a year and a half, 2 years, 3 weeks. You have no idea, and it might be like the perfect pivotal missing piece to a game years down the line.
Yeah.
Also, like those moments are ones that I think are really, it's like, yes, they're fun, but they're also super necessary for the process
Yeah.
because you can get so bogged down and you're looking so closely at balancing a mechanic or trying to figure out a story point. Like you can get too close to it. So those offshoots are just kind of a great way to keep your brain moving, but also take a breath from something that maybe you're stuck on and go have fun with building games still. So you're not
Yeah.
like you don't start hating the process.
Yep.
It's only happened to me once where I had an idea, and it was a killer game idea, and I thought, oh, when I get up in the morning, I'm going to go write that down,
Oh no.
and poof, gone.
Oh
I woke up in the
Gone.
no.
morning, I'm like,
Yep.
nothing. It's like, and it was, and I'm like, I know it was a killer idea, like, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that. So now what I do on my computer, and I, again, as you're saying, to anybody out there, if you're working on game design or you have any kind of inklings of ideas, have a notepad. I always have a notepad in my game bag so that if I'm at a game night and an idea gets sparked from playing another game, make sure I jot it down. And on my computer, I've got a folder just of game names, and
Sweet.
it's literally just the name of the folder. There's nothing inside it, but sometimes it's just an idea of, oh, that would be kind of a cool theme. There might be
Yeah.
something there. I'm gonna just again get it down, and then I'm gonna revisit it in a couple months when I go back through that list and see if there's something I want to kind of pursue, right? But
Oh yeah.
man, it is the worst feeling on the planet
Oh.
to
Did
know you had an idea that you didn't write down and is gone.
did it ever come back?
No.
Did it? No, I have
Oh
faith.
no.
Wait, James, I have faith that one day you're gonna be walking past a hockey rink and a high one's gonna come and just pop it back into your brain. I believe
Perhaps
in you.
it is possible. It's possible, but yeah, you just got to move on. Take the learning, I guess, is the key
Yeah.
thing, right? And
Yes.
Very true.
and move on from there. So then, when we're designing this game, and then how did you kind of pull Logan? Like, when did Logan kind of get pulled into the design process and kind of the third leg of the stool, so to speak?
Well,
You
I
want
think
this one, Sean?
yeah. Oh, I guess I realized I think this part is so funny because it was such a pivotal moment for Mike and I to really come to terms with who we are as creators and what it takes to make a board game. And those are they ended up being two very kind of uh separate entities and ideas.
Yeah.
And I'll explain. We're not like business people, and we don't have experience building a business, and we realized that we needed to do that if we wanted to make this work. Like we could make a one-off game and sell it to somebody, and that's great. And I know a lot of people do that, but we wanted to make this a thing, like make it a company and keep doing it because we loved it so much.
Nice.
But we knew nothing about business, so we were like, we need help for sure. And what Mike, you knew? Oh, you already knew
Yeah.
Logan.
So we're good friends from back in college, and we are still friends in like another like play friend group. And I was just like, "Hey, other creative friend of mine, are you interested in maybe having a chat with me and my new friend Sean about this game we got kind of cooking?" And at that point, like we are already building like the first prototype or two for like the first two ideas we ever came up with, which
Yeah.
will hopefully come to the market in years to come once we have a little bit more traction under us. And he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm down. Like, this sounds great." And then he was just that. Uh, that intellectual genius we needed in the business brain, the
Mm.
math. He's our numbers guy. I hate to say it that way, but he's our numbers guy. And every trio needs a numbers guy, I feel like. And he does it with a smile on his face, but he's also such a creative genius. So we got very, very lucky with Logan.
Yeah.
At least he didn't call him the bean counter. That'd be quality, right?
Exactly.
Well,
It's
he's
never too
from
late.
he's also from Boston, so there'd be a little bit of poetry there, a little Beantown poetry.
So
That's so true.
is he in business though? Like obviously he's good with numbers and things like that. Probably, but is he actually in business
So
as well, or?
he went to school for it,
Oh, nice.
for like business management and stuff like that, and then now he works in like logistics for Lego.
Yeah.
So he kind of was like the perfect tertiary person to help us out with a couple of the things we knew nothing about
Mm.
already. Not that Logan knew everything about the process, obviously, they're adjacent but not identical. But the fact that we were able to have a little bit of a leg going into that part of the process because
Mhm.
Sean and I love the creative part. Like we could
Yeah.
do that all day. Give us a cup of coffee each and a 5 hour road trip and we won't stop talking. It's our favorite part. But then it's like, all right, now set up logistics partners and like how are we gonna get the game from there to here? And I'm like, ooh, I don't well, hey Logan, how do we
Yeah.
do that? But we're all learning though, which is very important.
Yeah.
Like we're all learning it in stride together. We try not to have any one person take on one role alone. It's truly the three of us, and we want to learn all three.
And some
How it
people
goes.
like that part too, right? Like and which I think what's important here is that you guys have kind of figured out who should be doing what role, right? And where the different strengths are. And, you know, I've talked to people sometimes who are, on the business side and, they say, I can never design a game, right? They'll say that I could never design a game, but man, am I ever good at doing business? And I'm very good at, figuring out systems and sourcing and cold calling and things like that and getting the answers I need to get this thing across the goal line. So being able to kind of match up those complementary skill sets, I think was a very smart decision on your behalf, right?
Yeah, I thank you. I agree. I think we got very lucky with that. Like, two things here. One, we hear creators all the time be like, "Oh, I'm doing this. I'm making a game." We're like, "That's awesome. Who else are you working with?" And they're like, "Oh, it's just me." And
Yeah.
it blows my mind because I can barely handle 1/3 of this work, and I don't know if that's because I'm I'm like inept or if it's just a lot. And I would like
It's
to
a
think
lot.
that it's because it's a lot.
It's a lot.
So
Yeah.
like being able to share that workload with Mike and Logan has been a huge blessing. And then the second part of this is like I've learned a lot about my skills by figuring out what I can do in the slack that I can pick up. The only example that comes to mind immediately is like I think our first con where like they would wind me up and just send me to go talk to strangers because I a nice learning step for me and made me feel like I had another thing to contribute, which was good.
What's interesting, I mean, when you say the workload is large, it is large. It is a large workload. Most companies in this industry are 1 to 3 like 1 to 3 people.
Yeah.
And it still surprises me how many people don't realize that, right?
Yeah.
Where they assume that if they see something on Kickstarter, it's a large organization or it's a big corporation, it's the man, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not realizing it's just a dude maybe in his basement, doing this
Right.
as a passion project, because it's the one thing that keeps them sane when they get home from their job that they might be bored with.
Yep.
And it's the thing, it's their creative outlet. And that's there's been kind of their dream to put this out there. And, it's important to be mindful of that because it's easy, I think, sometimes in this kind of online world to get mean, to get nasty, and to kind of be hard on people, not realizing that, whoa, wait a second, this is just a single individual just trying to follow their
Yeah.
passion, right? Like this person's not driving a
100%.
Lamborghini off my pledge. They're just hoping they can get
right.
this thing out of the factory, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And
And
it's so hard too because it truly does. There's heavy games, there's light games, doesn't matter what type of game. It's just so much work
Yeah.
especially at an individual level, especially when it's your passion project. A lot of these other creators, it's like I've been working on this game for 5 years,
Yeah.
and it's been like the one thing, like you said, I get home from work and I can pour in a couple of hours of my day to this thing I truly love.
Yeah.
It takes time, and I see people all the time, like to your same point, where they're just like, like
Yeah.
it's truly a love for it,
yeah,
and then you
because they
hopefully
love
get
it.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
And from the other side of that too, it's like creators also, I would for help because like sometimes being insular, yes, we don't always have the connections to have like in business or in logistics or whatever, but there are people who, if you're impassioned by your own work, will want to help you. Like even us, I would say it takes a village. Like yes, there are three of us, but even even we lean on like other people for help with our graphic design, and obviously our artist who's brilliant, love Victoria, and then us three. Like it takes a village, and it takes the willingness to ask for help at least.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
To build on that, one thing piece of advice I guess I would give to anybody out there who is looking to do their own game and maybe are doing it alone, the best way to kind of deal with that is to give yourself time, right? So most people will put all the time into the development of the game, right? So spend maybe 5 years developing a game, and then it's a mad rush. Now I got to try to get to market and get my Kickstarter ready, right? And it's like, okay, at some point you have to kind of call it, right? It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be ready, right? I'm sure even this game, you guys could keep making more tweaks to it, right? At some point, you just got to kind of call it and say, okay, we're going to go forward with where we're at. It's properly, so that when you do launch, it's not kind of like all the work up front on the game and then this much on the business part afterwards, right?
Oh, right. Totally. I mean, that was one of we're very, very grateful that for the past year and a half since we officially LLC'd, we've spent a majority of our time at conventions talking to Kickstarter reps, talking to other designers, asking those hard questions. Not just how did you make your game, but like how did you go through the process? What were those first, like after design, from design to manufacturer to publish, like what were some key notes, some key takeaways that you can help us as brand new designers, brand new publishers make it in this industry? And we wrote them all down and we took them to a T, and we took them very close to heart, and we followed them all. And one of those things was do a lot of your like the Kickstarter campaign alone. That is so much work. Kickstarter campaign. They're like, do as much of it as you can ahead of time. Like set up everything that you can ahead of time as much as you can. And it's like, and we still only did like 60%, 50% of the work ahead of time.
Yeah.
And even still, it was incredibly alleviating to just like feel a little less pressure during the campaign at that crazy crunch. Don't get me wrong. It felt like that first week flew by. It was also the longest week we've ever had.
Yeah.
But knowing that we could do as much as we could on the front end from that guidance that we learned from everyone else in the industry so far was just so crucial in us like keeping our sanity, I guess.
I always refer to it as soul
crushing.
crushing.
People. Oh yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It totally is. It's we tried really hard to avoid that feeling, and thankfully it's been going really well so far. But it's it takes a lot of work. So
where'd the name Whisker Wars come from? How'd you guys come up with that name?
That's all you, Sean.
That was oh man, that was a conscious decision to. So I'll start here. We Whisker Wars was not our first game. I mentioned earlier that Mike and I started kind of riffing off of like a heavy monster slaying high fantasy game.
Yeah.
And a lot of the advice we got was bring a game to market that you can manage for your first game. So don't try to learn all of shipping and logistics with a game that
has 15 pounds.
That has like 1,000 minis and exactly. Yeah. So it was a conscious decision to pursue a game that was light in mechanics and light in components. Not mechanics. Mechanics are great in Whisker Wars. Like I don't think they're light. They are simple. The components are certainly light. Just to give ourselves enough breathing room to learn the ropes of the entire process. So that's a long way of saying in that was making a game as accessible as possible, because if you're a smaller game that is light on components, you need it to be loud. So accessible as possible means often an accessible theme. So that's where I grew up with Redwall, so like that came easily. I was like, please, let's do Animal Warriors. But
I wasn't sold at first either.
Yeah.
And then you pitched a couple names and pitched the name of the game, and I was like, all right, let's do it.
I love the alliteration.
So like something that doesn't take itself too seriously, to make it accessible to kids and adults, that the mechanics can back it up, and that a theme that people love and want on their shelf, and then a name that people can remember. So that all kind of boiled down to the alliterative Whisker Wars.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I always like to say like there's compact yet robust is the way I like to describe some games. Best example I would give would be After Nova from Road to Infamy, R2I Games. it fits in a tiny little box, like a little telescoping box. It looks like a standard kind of a game you put a card game in. But once you put it on the table, like it literally takes up the entire table.
Oh,
right?
whoa.
Yeah. So like there's lots of stuff there in a little box. So you don't necessarily have to have a giant box to have a giant game. Right? You can
100%.
have a good table presence if you're efficient in how you put things together, and it seems like that's what you guys have done here as well. I just want to kind of say this up off the hop because I don't want this to get passed by because it's pretty important. You guys are already funded. Like you crushed your funding goal. I'm gonna put this in Canadian dollars. It's the only way I can see it, but it also sounds bigger. So you're almost at 100. You're almost at 120,000 on about a $13,500 goal.
Right.
Congrats, you guys. That's amazing. 1,057 backers. Still got 10 days to go. We all know, the fans of the podcast know that there's always this back-end hockey stick that happens in the last 3 days of the campaign. So that is going to jump up even more. I'm sure you guys will be very, very happy. I'm sure you're happy already where you're at, but you'll be even happier where it's going to kind of finalize. So congrats on that. Can you explain to people, just give an overview of kind of what this game is? Somebody's kind of saying, okay, what is Whisker Wars? Like, what's the essence of this game? How would they play it in kind of simple terms, I guess?
Absolutely. So our sort of game official pitch is Whisker Wars is a whimsically serious hand management take that style card battler where 2 to 4 players take on the role of a cunning faction in the world of Supetra where the king has gone missing, and now everyone is trying to fill this power vacuum by battling each other. That is our sort of go-to spiel. How I like to sort of say it more casually in playtesting events and when we're online or we're at a sort of local game store is we try to make a bridge with this game to a little bit more of those more complicated strategic card battlers on the market. All three of us love playing Magic the Gathering. We're big Commander Weekly guys, so it's like we wanted to scratch that same itch that Magic the Gathering gives to us, where we have those like 2 hour long games and we get that sort of satisfaction of a great play and winning into a much more controlled and digestible medium. And then Sean was very thankfully the creative genius behind the anthropomorphic sort of fantasy world with all the alliterative and pun and portmanteau words and names that we have today. So we really just tried to crush that as much as we can. And we still play test it every day as much as we can. And we think we've got a pretty great game coming to market here.
Yeah, it's if I may, I think one, can you tell that Mike has done that before? Because
it didn't sound rehearsed at all.
Right. He pitches this game so much, and it's actually kind of nice to see how good he's gotten at it. I'm glad I didn't have to do that because my pitch is not that clean.
Yeah.
The other parts of the game that I really love are there are no turns and there is no elimination. So, and when I say there are no turns, is everyone deploys their warriors and then reveals them. And then in an initiative system, it ping pongs around the board, resolving as one big battle. So you don't have people waiting for turns. There's no analysis paralysis. You don't have the time to like go on your phone or call your mom, which you should do at some point, but not during the game.
Yeah.
So like, I just like that because it keeps everybody engaged and involved, and you get like a really tight, intense experience, and then you can put it away, or you can play it again. So you don't need to like sit there for a whole slog. Like games can last from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. Like it can be really tight and really quick, or sometimes it can drag. Like if you have really good players that are keeping it alive.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we would rather hear someone go, "Oh, we'd rather hear someone go, "Oh, let's play it again," than "Oh, that was fun, but I'm glad it's over." You know.
I love the names. So you got Mercenary, the rat with or the mouse with the sword. I think is hilarious. You Squirrel for a squirrel, and you got a Herald, which is obviously with a hair, and then Porcupikeman. Like, how much time do you guys sit bantering on these ideas of these little kind of like dad pun animal names?
It never ends, James.
Bears.
We'll get a text at 1 a.m. from Sean that's like, Swanderer.
Yeah,
it's a swan and a wanderer, and I'm like. Yeah, man. Good job. Go to sleep.
Oh, I love it. It's so
it never ends. We love it, though.
we did have someone say, they were like, "Oh, well, eventually you'll run out," and it fired me up. I was like, "Oh, now I can never run out. Now I have to forever do this with my life."
Are you still adding characters to the game?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So our goal, we essentially built the game mechanically and thematically so that you can just throw as many expansions as we can create, however many core sets we end up creating, into one big deck, shuffle, 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 and play an infinite amount of replayability. So we have unfortunately signed ourselves up for hopefully an infinite amount of puns and portmanteaus for the rest of our life. Sean, have fun. I have
Awesome.
like one or two really killer ones a game or
It's true.
expansion, and I'll take that pride.
No, I absolutely love it. I just showed on the screen really quickly here for those who are watching on the replay. A couple of things that I want to point. One is What's Game Manufacturing. I got mad respect for them. They do great, great work. They've made a couple of our games as well,
Oh, cool.
and their quality is amazing. So again, I think you're in very good hands there from a manufacturing standpoint.
It's nice to hear.
Yeah, Launch Boom as well. We've had the team on the podcast, and as well as a lot of publishers have been on here who have used Launch Boom, and obviously Launch Boom's helped a lot of people, especially first timers, get their feet wet and kind of off the ground. So it looks like you guys really did your homework kind of going into this, which is refreshing to see, right? I've seen less and less now than I saw maybe 3 years ago of people coming into a campaign unprepared. I remember when I first started the podcast, I'd be quite shocked that off air I'd be talking to somebody and like they hadn't even thought of, like they hadn't even started scoping out manufacturing yet. I was like, what?
Right.
What?
Like,
Are you
the
crazy?
campaign's
Right?
almost over.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
So it's good to see like that more and more is consistent, right? As people are getting kind of their act together and coming in and taking it very seriously and hitting the ground. I think that's what backers are expecting too, is that you're not going to, the classic Kickstarter model, which is, hey, this is an idea I have, help me kind of fund it so I can keep pursuing it. Now it's no, this thing has got to be pretty much ready to go when the campaign's done.
Yeah.
And clearly you guys have done that. Who did your artwork? Your artwork's amazing. I love it.
Her name is Vittoria Pompolani. She's based in Italy. She's awesome.
Yeah.
We love Vittoria.
She goes
We-
by at Bone Dust on
Yeah.
Instagram. Huge shout out to Victoria.
Yes.
How'd you find her?
We were at PAX 2023 specifically with one of our goals being to find an artist for our first game, and we had already decided that it would be this this theme, this anthropomorphic, whimsically serious medieval world. So we specifically went in looking for something that fits, like an art style that matches the theme and the heaviness of the theme. And she was one that jumped up right away. She did a game called Goodknock, which also crushed its last two Kickstarters.
Yeah.
Really cool art, obviously, because it's Vittoria's. And we were like, that's got to be our artist. So we interviewed a few different artists, and this is a story I like. It's very quick. We interviewed a few artists, but the next day after the interview, we talked about, like, we were like, hey, like, could you do like a mouse night? And then the next day we woke up with the mouse nary that we use today in our inbox. And she goes, oh, you mean like this? And we were like, you're hired. You're hired. Like,
That's
on the
amazing.
spot. So I would say she more chose us than we chose her.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means so much, right? If you can have that kind of relationship with your artist where they can send you something quickly.
Yeah.
Right. Or you have that kind of back and forth saying, hey, I was kind of think along these lines. Are you guys cool with kind of this direction? Man, if you get an artist like that, that is really the Goldilocks zone, right? Because,
Oh, yeah.
when you kind of spec it out and then you kind of wait for them to come back, it sucks. Another thing I do, quite frankly, is, and I know there's people out there who are anti-AI, but from a comp standpoint, I'm not very good at kind of sketching out with my own pen. If I could, then I'd be an
Oh,
artist
I see what you mean.
Right.
Yeah.
of what I'm trying to do. And it's a good way of shorthanding kind of this kind of what I had, like I did this on our Cities of Venus game that we had, where I knew the idea of what I wanted for the sequel, which is called Survivors of Venus. And it's, you're a mech on the surface and so forth. And I had this idea of I want a mech and the mining mech, and I want kind of in this valley so I used AI, right? And I came up with some comps, and then I said to the artist saying, this is kind of what I had in mind, like along this line, obviously in your style, your vision, but so that you're not kind of spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
This is the direction I'm kind of headed. And he's like, oh, I got it. No problem.
Yeah.
Completely different design what he ended up creating from what the comps we had, but it was going in the same direction of what I want, where I was headed in. And so we are on the same page, quite frankly, kind of entering into that design stage, which was very, very helpful. So I think
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
can be good if it's used responsibly, quite frankly, and used kind of as a tool to help you maybe work with your artists, right? Like I know there's a lot of artists that are anti, they kind of
Totally.
see it as the enemy, but the reality is things like Adobe, the Adobe suite, there's a lot of these tools are built right in through, generative expand and things like this, that it's not going away. And so, if you're an artist, it's kind of like, okay, how can I use this as more of a tool than seeing it as a competitor, right? Not looking to replace me, but is there a way, and that's one way to use it as a tool of storyboarding or building comps to kind of make sure that you and your publisher are on the same page, quite frankly, as to the direction you're going. I've had other cases where I didn't do that, and it was pretty far the chasm between what I had in mind of what I wanted
Right.
and what they had created, and I could only use words to kind of tell them what was in my mind, right? And it's tough for them to
Right.
see what's in my mind. If you can show them what's in your mind, that's much, much easier. So,
Yeah, I hear you. I think the hard line for me is when AI is used to replace your artist, because I
yeah,
don't think that's okay at all.
yeah,
Because and I'm not gonna speak for Mike, but I can speak for Glasshouse. We've talked about this before, that like we're not gonna use AI art in our games. I can totally see how that's a useful tool, because
yeah,
I feel like we got very lucky with Vittoria that I can write out something
hmm,
and be like, hey, what you got here? And she's awesome, so she can get it and see it, and she has a vision. That might not be the case with artists moving forward, so I totally understand
yeah.
the use of a tool. Where our hard line is when it's used instead of people who have worked hard for hone their craft, and like when it starts replacing jobs, that's not
Yeah,
where we're going.
absolutely. And another example I would give was I was at a convention here in Canada, and there was a panel, and it was on AI in the board game industry.
Yeah.
And someone had asked a question: is it okay for like prototyping? And one of the panelists, who was clearly anti AI, said, "Oh no, I would never look at a game if it ever had any AI in it as a prototype." And I was like, "Really? Like, what do you, if you're not an artist,
Right.
right? What
Right.
are you supposed to do if you're a dude in your basement?
Mhm.
You're trying to visually show somebody an idea for a game you have. This is like, I'm talking during the ideation stage. Obviously,
Yeah,
I think we're all on the
totally.
same page when you get to the
Yeah.
final production, use an artist.
Mhm.
I use them for prototypes all the time because it's the best way to get people actually to play it. Because when you're doing hand drawing stick figures on white pieces of paper, guess what?
Yep.
It's very tough to get people to play your game.
Yeah.
Right? If you can mock something up that's somewhat visual, where they can kind of see, okay, I can see what this game is just trying to be, you have a greater chance of getting people to actually play test that. But I think we're all on the same page that it's kind of that final step. Okay, now that you've kind of got all the kinks and everything worked out, you've used it as a tool. Now let's go get somebody in the industry and help them support their craft
Totally.
and help elevate
There's
them, and let's profile them, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean. I would even argue that there is a third door. I think something a trick that we used for our one of our first prototypes, and this was when we were like, one, personally, I think whether you like AI art or not,
Yeah,
I think that human art is just, I think it's more beautiful.
sure.
So something we did for our first prototype was, we're not artists, so we were like, you're right, we need like a visual
Yeah.
aspect to this. Otherwise, people aren't going to really want to sit there playing with our stick figures. So what we did was we went online and we found artists' work that we didn't own,
Yep.
and we put a disclaimer very loudly on anytime someone played the game, which is like, we do not own this art. We are using it strictly for prototype purposes. If someone wants to come after us, they have every right to.
We're not selling anything.
We're not
We're just
selling
using
anything.
it to play test mechanics.
We didn't want to use AI, and we didn't want to have stick figures. So that was our third door. That was like, okay, then we're gonna very blatantly say we don't own this art. This is someone else's work.
Absolutely.
Thank you, humbly, thank you for letting us use it. And that was kind of our middle road that we,
Yeah.
some people might be not okay with that. Be like, hey, don't use my art without my permission.
Yeah, it's, you know what, and that's the thing, right? Like if you look back at pre AI, I mean that's exactly what I did, right? Because again, still need something visual, right, to get
Right.
people to play test.
Yep.
And I would go and find the closest thing I could find online, and nothing's really going to match, and it's going to be kind of a hodgepodge of different things. But you're not selling it; is to create something for somebody to play test, right? And I think that's the line that you guys are kind of delineating here, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
So-
So, but I totally see where you're coming from. Like, it's it's here, and AI's here.
Yeah.
It's
It
something
is
we
here.
have to contend with every day. So I get it.
Exactly. What's next for you guys? Like, where do you go from here? Is this like, you said you had other game ideas you're working on? It's, you were saying earlier that, you didn't want to just create a game, but you wanted to really create a company that was going to be ongoing kind of publishing house. Do you have plans for kind of the next, have you already mapped out when the next game is coming? And can you tease what that might be?
Oh
or?
yeah. So we little tease, a little more obvious. So Whisker Wars, for those who have been playing and have been following us and joining the Discord, our sort of goal was always to create a second installation of Whisker Wars, a sort of second core set and more expansions, and hopefully keep that pattern of
Yeah.
core set deck, 2 expansions, core set deck, 2 expansions for to the moon as long as we can. And if people love it, we'll do it. So we definitely have goals to hopefully kickstart our second core set, the Dark Wilds, next either Q1, Q2 of 2026. But after that, we have been cooking up quite a lot of other ideas over the past 2 to 3 years that we are very much so hoping to bring to market. We have a cooperative knights and mechs game maybe that we were thinking about building
I'm
at some
really
point.
excited about
It's
that.
like
By the way.
almost like a defending, like a think like Bloons tower defense meets mechs in medieval warfare.
That's
Hoping to
cool.
pull that one off. And then we got a semi-cooperative sort of push your luck style game that we're looking to do. And then we have a space chess game that we're thinking that we might reskin into something else. We got a lot
There's,
of
there's one I'm going to keep pushing for, and that's
yes.
I'm pushing for I would love for this to be one of our next installments, which is a asymmetric team comp arena battler, where you build a team of heroes, I build a team of heroes. It's very like a classic format,
Sure.
but we have a couple of unique takes that we're gonna keep on the down low for now, and then hopefully people will be like, oh, this is awesome. But
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
I'm excited for all of them.
Well, for this game, for Whisker Wars, those who want to check it out, I am going to put a link in the show notes. They can also go on to Kickstarter and just type in Whisker Wars. You'll find it easily. If it's not on your For You page already, which it probably is. Mike and Sean, I want to wish you all the best in this campaign. Man, you guys are crushing it, especially for your first game. My gosh, you guys are doing really, really well. I'm sure you're going to be happy with where it ends, and I'm definitely going to be cheering you on along this journey, my friends.
Thank you so much, James. Really appreciate it. Thank you for having us on.
No worries.
Yeah, it means a lot to us.
Sounds
So,
good. Tell Logan I said
right.
hi.
All right, we will.
Well,
Take care. Cheers.
Take care, James.
This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.